Hey, I'm Philip Thomas, founder of Contraption Company, a product studio crafting tools for online work. In this podcast, I share a mix of conversations and essays about building a software business. In today's episode, I chat with my friend Aaron Cohn. Aaron's the co-founder of realnice, a simple personal website builder. realnice competes with my product, Postcard, so I thought it'd be fun to talk shop with him. A quick note, if you're not on the Contraption Company mailing list, sign up at contraption.co. There, you can learn more about our products, like Booklet and Postcard. All right, let's get started. Welcome to the Contraption Company podcast, Aaron Cohn. You are the best guest I have ever had, but it's also the only guest.
I'm pumped to be number one. It's cool to be number one. I feel like this is a canvas. This is a ball of clay that can get molded into any direction that we want.
I think the number one topic that would be fun to talk about is each of our number one products as we moved into this craft software world, which is personal website builders. So we each build a personal website builder.
We are competitors.
We
are fierce competitors.
Well, there's some fun backstory to this because this isn't our first time being competitors, right?
Nope. We met because Philip started Moonlight, which was a two-sided marketplace for developers to get work. And I was employee number 2 at A-Team, which is a two-sided marketplace for developers to get work. And when you're starting a new two-sided marketplace, you try to rip off users from other platforms. So like a little piece of shit I was emailing all of Philip's users, and Philip labeled all of the users user number 500, 499, 498. So I was just going down the list, and I accidentally emailed Philip and his partner and co-founder, Emma. And Emma was like, you probably shouldn't be emailing our users, but also we just sold Moonlight, so it's maybe okay, and maybe you could talk to Philip. And then we became friends. I think we first started talking about things that annoyed us about making two-sided marketplaces and running venture-backed companies. And I think we bonded a little bit over that. And we've both moved very much towards building craft software experiences that are built with care and actually giving a shit about privacy and the user experience, and not necessarily growth at all costs. We're like the little craft brewer going up against Budweiser, but for software.
It almost felt similar to that back in the marketplace days too, where it isn't quite a zero-sum world where we were fighting against each other. We were fighting the status quo and trying to change how people hired and behaved.
Yes.
And so I think it's always fun to find people that are trying to solve the same problem as you.
Yeah.
Because when you've worked on the same problem for years, you just have such a depth of knowledge and understanding that like you meet someone at a party and they just don't understand what the hell you work on. But then you talk to someone about the same product, solving the same problem in some ways, and there's some fun to it.
Yes. When we met and first started talking about two-sided marketplaces for freelance software developers, there were very few people who I could have that conversation with who really got it. And I think it was nice that you really got it. And then, there's also not that many people I could talk about the struggles and trials and tribulations of building a personal website builder with.
Yeah, so fast forward past the marketplace days, and each of us have gone this indie route of trying to make small software products, small in the kind of craft.
I think you used the term craft. I sometimes use the term small batch software, but it's the same thing.
Yeah. And so we both set off on these journeys and both ended up building personal website builders.
Yeah, it's like, everybody starts out building personal website builders.
Why do you think that is? Why did you start a personal website builder?
First of all, after doing a two-sided marketplace, I was like, no, we're going to build software that people pay money to use, and that's it.
Like a subscription.
Yeah, we're building pure SaaS from now on. If for every additional paying user that I get, I want to do exactly 0 additional work.
Yeah.
With every two-sided marketplace, as the supply grows and the demand goes, the amount of work you have to do explodes exponentially. You look at companies like Notion and Figma and Slack and Strava that are pure software plays, and I really believe that those businesses are a million times more enjoyable to run than running Airbnb or running Uber. And I love Airbnb and Uber as product, but they are a nightmare to run.
Marketplaces are the ultimate hard mode of software businesses.
Totally.
You have multiple audiences and you can build the best software, but you're so dependent on things like network effects and growth tactics that it's hard. So I'm definitely in the same boat where I keep in my head this idea of classic tools, like a hammer,
Yeah.
you know, that lifetime warranty hammer that just works and you pick it up and it's great. And I really care about longevity in software, building something that you can use for a long time. And marketplaces, well, hard, also have this ephemerality to
Yeah.
it, where with some exceptions, like an Uber, there's a lot of them just haven't survived the test of time. They work for a bit and then another one comes along.
The other reason, though, that I started building a personal website builder was because all of the initial solutions out there really annoyed me. And I think that's a decent reason to start a thing. It's obviously an established space. There's been 500 website builders that have come before us, from
Yeah.
Dreamweaver to WordPress to so many. And obviously Squarespace and Wix are the big guys these days. But I probably built over the last 10 years, I don't know, 80, 90 websites for clients. I've used every tool out there. I'm annoyed by all of them. My partner, Matt, had his personal website on about.me, and about.me was annoying because it has a giant flashing join about.me on the front of it. And Linktree is another thing in the space, and they all look like garbage. Everyone has them because they're easy, but they don't look good, and they should be on yourname.com. And Squarespace and Wix, I used to run a thing called makemymamawebsite.com. I still have it. The only web dev agency in the world exclusively for moms. Because when you're a nice Jewish boy from Long Island and moms really like you, you got to play to your strengths. So anyway, I used all of them and none of the moms could figure out Squarespace and Wix. They'd pay me a couple $100 to make them a very simple site. And even after building 70 or 80 of them, I was annoyed by it. I think you and I also share a love for simplicity.
Yeah.
And when your company becomes too big and you have all these engineers, you got to figure out something for them to do. I guess tell them to make more features. And when products can do all sorts of things, when they have all these features, the simplicity goes away.
That's definitely one of the reasons I like this idea of small batch craft indie software is there's so much pressure to make things complex over time.
Yeah.
Where when I went through Y Combinator fellowship a long time ago with a past company, they would tell us that your company can only be the simpler, easier alternative for a little bit until it becomes not simple and easy.
Yeah.
And there's some truth to that, unless you are just happy with not having $1 billion exit,
Yeah.
in which case things can stay simple. But inevitably, every software company tends to follow this path where it gets some product market fit and then spends the rest of its days on enterprisability, authorization, SSO, SOC 2 compliance, and all these things that are valuable for unlocking more money, but can just turn the core user experience into a confusing jumble of settings.
I really love products that do one thing really well.
Yeah.
One classic example, and they're not a perfect company, but Calendly. Calendly hasn't had an update in 10 years. They're a total sales-focused organization at this point, but Calendly does a pretty good job. If you have a link, it lets people book time and reschedule and cancel. And it's just a very nice utility. It does this one thing pretty well. I like cal.com better these days, but same thing. There was an app that I used to use on my phone, and I don't know why I got rid of it, but I liked it for a while. It was an app that reminded you 5 times a day that you're going to die. Because in Bhutan, reminding yourself of death.
Memento Mori.
5 times a day promotes happiness. It was called WeCroak. And it was so simple. And I paid $10 for it. And it was great. It did this one thing very well. And sometimes that's just nice. I miss software that you just pay for one time and it does a thing.
Yeah.
It does the thing that you expect it to do.
With a personal website, you just want it to run. You don't want to have to go in and update WordPress. You don't want to have to relearn the software to make a spelling change.
WordPress is a nightmare. Yeah. It was super ahead of its time. The stat is always 33% of the web runs on WordPress, and maybe it still does. But it's not good. Have you ever tried to make a WordPress site?
Oh, yeah. It's
a nightmare.
It's the best and worst tool. I would almost say it's the second best tool for every job, but it'll never be the best tool for every job. And it's a fascinating tool how they've maintained backwards compatibility. Part of the sacrifices they have to make is making it complex so that old sites don't break.
I'll tell you what our inspiration for this thing really was. I'm obsessed with the idea of what I call single-purpose website builders.
Okay.
So Squarespace and Wix and Webflow are general-purpose website builders. So you could build any type of website you want on there. You could build, if you're a restaurant, if you're a psychologist, if you're a photographer. It could be a personal website, but it could also be for a construction business. But when you're for everyone, you're kind of for no one. And I realized there was only one time where friends of mine, who ordinarily I would think no way you'll be able to make a website can make a website is
Yeah.
when they're getting married.
Yeah.
They can make a
That's a good
Zola
point.
site. They can make an Appy Couple. Any of these wedding website builders, because they're single purpose website builders. They're good at making a wedding website. It knows what you need.
Yeah.
You got to collect RCPs, have location info, have some pictures of the couple, have some basic info about the day. That's it. Maybe a password protection.
Yeah.
Because they're single purpose. So they give you everything you need for a wedding website, nothing you don't. I would also say that in certain ways, Partyful is a single purpose website builder. It lets you make a website for your event.
Yeah.
Luma as well. It's got certain things built in, only the features that you would need to manage an event and nothing that you don't.
So those are all interesting examples because with personal website builders, it definitely seems like people are happier to have any website that looks good. They'd rather have a shortcut to a great website rather than a website they made themselves that is super customized. Maybe stepping back here. So
Yeah.
let's recap the basics. We each have a personal website builder.
Should we say what they're called?
Yeah,
and
what is
they
it
do?
called? What's
the thesis?
What's the thesis?
Great. Do you want to do yours first?
So I started Postcard about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And Postcard is a personal website builder. It lets anyone on the internet make a personal website in 5 minutes. And the website is postcard.page. It was originally built because I deleted all my social media during the pandemic and I still wanted a way to stay in touch with people. And so I looked at Facebook pages and was like, Facebook pages are basically a personal website. They're beautiful. They're simple. They have a cover photo, a photo, and you post on them and people know how that works. Why don't I make a personal website that's as easy as a Twitter bio?
Yeah.
Upload a photo, upload a cover photo, and you can post on it. And one of the things that differentiates Postcard is I originally intended for it to really replace social media with a monthly email newsletter. I don't think I've done a good job of productizing how someone should use an email newsletter.
Yeah.
But every Postcard has an email subscribe form and you can post on it and it has these nice controls where you can keep posts unlisted and it sends an email to everyone that's subscribed.
Yeah.
And so it has this nice synergy between website and email.
And by the way, I still love getting a friend update email. I love getting your email at the beginning of every month. I send friend update emails periodically, maybe every 2-3 months. And I do it the janky way where I just have a Google sheet and I BCC everybody. But everyone is like, yeah, I enjoy getting this and I should be sending out personal updates via email every once in a while. And I think that when you get emails from brands, it sucks. But if you get an email from someone that you know with nothing that you have to do, it's still a delight.
Yeah. And I think we have downplayed the value of long form communication.
I think so too.
I think that Facebook posts just have a tendency to be like, life's awesome. Here's me on a beach. And I think that we are missing out on really high quality, like, here's a little bit more about what's going on in my life.
Yeah.
And I also think that we have focused so much on competition and dopamine, getting likes, that there's something nice about the ritual of a monthly email because it's the same every month and you get a more constant sample.
Yeah. And then when you catch up with someone, they can ask you a better question than how's it going or what's happening. Sending it out has improved the quality of conversations that I have when I catch up and see friends. I don't think that you've hyped this up enough. I wish more of my friends sent me personal friend updates. There's a guy in New York named Alex Godin. He's Seth Godin's son. And he was the first one that started sending me updates. And I've got a few others here in New York. Casey Rosengren, who's a community builder, but not enough. I want more. I want more people to use Postcard so that they send me, or not use Postcard and still send me personal monthly or bi-monthly email updates. They're great. They don't have to be a big deal.
Definitely.
And by the way, I do have a Postcard, even though we're competitors. If you go to heyitsaaron.com, that's my Postcard. And I get an email once in a while with how many views it gets, and it gets more than I expect.
So tell me about realnice. So get realnice.com. And
so realnice is designed to be the simplest personal website builder imaginable. Realistically, it's about as simple as Postcard. It doesn't have any email integration at the moment. Where we've put a lot of focus is on people who've never made a website before. Similar to what you said with early Facebook, I'm also nostalgic for the early days of Facebook, circa 2006, 2007. I know that early Facebook made my college experience way better because if I met someone in a class or in my hall, I could go look them up and I could get an idea of what they're about, what they like, what they're into, so that next time we saw each other, we could...
Sorry, Intermission as the dog is in need of attention.
Oh, I know. I bet my
He,
hands taste good.
he finished his chicken hearts and wants more.
I know. It's okay. This is wabu sabi, my favorite Japanese word that means it's like the beauty in imperfection. So a couple dog barks in the background, all good.
I have my wabi sabi for artists, designers, poets, and philosophers book conveniently hanging out right here.
I think that's also part of small batch software, in the same way that if you get something at a farmer's market, maybe the packaging isn't as slick. If you get a really high quality, maybe like a yogurt, like straight from the cow at a farmer's market, it's not going to have the fanciest packaging ever. It's not going to be as slick as Chobani. But damn, it's probably going to be better. And you're going to forgive all of the imperfections because the core of it is good. It's clear that someone cares about it. Yeah, Real Nice is the same thing. I'd say the other thing that Real Nice is focused on is everybody sucks at writing about themselves. So we have a thing where you can copy and paste your LinkedIn into Real Nice and we'll get you a site in about 10 seconds.
I love that. Yeah. That's how I helped some early Postcard people make websites. I would go to their LinkedIn and just fill it in and write it for them. And that was great. People want to have an identity separate from social networks because those are all rented, not owned properties. And a domain is one of the only things you own on the internet.
Totally agree. That's one of our things too, that your Facebook, your Instagram is fine, but it's still owned by Zuck. Your LinkedIn is owned by Bill Gates and Satya. And we describe it as having a little home on the internet. It's a starter home. You can't do as much on Postcard or Real Nice as you can on Webflow, your former employer, or even Squarespace or Wix or WordPress. But like 90% of people who have a LinkedIn don't have a site. So I think maybe we both also saw that and we're like, hey, there's still a lot of people who should have just a very basic internet presence. And I've seen having a personal site be so helpful when it comes to getting a job. Yeah. Like when I worked at A-Team, and maybe you saw this with Moonlight, everyone who's really good who applied to the platform had a personal website.
Yes.
If it's almost a 100% correlation between having a personal website and being good at what you do, because it just shows that you care a little bit more and you have enough technical ability to figure out how to connect a domain.
I remember Expensify looking at their job application once back in the day, and it said, what is your personal website? And if you don't have one, why not?
Yeah, that's very funny. Also, when I'm hiring, everyone looks like a fucking business robot on LinkedIn. Yeah. And LinkedIn sucks if you do a handful of different things. If you've got a product manager job by day, but you do coaching at night, LinkedIn doesn't capture that super well. Or if you've had a windy career path, you can actually be a fucking human being with a personal website, whereas LinkedIn doesn't let you do that as much. LinkedIn is all the way on the side of super professional. Yeah. And you're not really going to share your Instagram. That's super social. Most people have it private these days. It's hard to find something in the middle. Your Twitter profile used to be something for tech people that, oh, this is like an interesting balance between work and personal and being human. But now it's X and it's a dumpster fire. It's also really nice to have something that you don't have to update all the time. With a personal website, you set it and forget it. But even with my LinkedIn, I feel the need to constantly be putting out content. And sometimes I don't want to do that.
I realized that with Postcard, I end up tweaking my website copy like every week, just as I'll be walking somewhere and think, oh, I should put that I like fermentation on my website. And it'll just happen.
Totally. There's I think one thing that's nice about both Postcard and Real Nice is they both have the interface of Google Docs.
Simple text editors.
Exactly.
So Postcard, to me, it has more of a social feel. It has like a Facebook cover photo, less work focused. But I think Real Nice does a really good job of looking more professional, and you can have multiple pages, which Postcard can't. And it seems like you've had academics be a little bit of a group of people that like Real Nice. What would you say are your personas of users nowadays?
It's probably a third job seekers, a third people who are consultants or they have a side hustle of some sort, and a third people who just want to have a little home on the internet just to have one. And maybe they're speaking at conferences or they're trying to write more, or they just want a central hub for all the places they are on the internet.
So how did you build Real Nice?
Oh, so that's a big difference between Real Nice and Postcard. So Real Nice is 98% built on Bubble. Bubble.io, which is a no-code tool. And if you want to build SaaS, you kind of need to know how to code. And I was working with a partner who is an amazing full stack software developer. He was early on the team at Venmo. He was head of product at Stash Invest. He was head of product at Republic.com. He's a terrific software developer. But there's this meme image of a construction site, and there's a giant hole in the ground, and there's one guy digging the giant ditch, and he's labeled developer. And then there's 10 people standing around the hole looking at the ditch, and it's like product manager and CEO and biz dev person and whatever. And I always felt like the person standing on the outside. I felt like I was always nagging Matt to, hey, can you build this feature? Can you build this feature? And it was very unempowering and it wasn't fun. So I really wanted to climb down in the ditch with him. And I was always jealous of people like you that were technical. And I tried to learn to code a whole bunch of times, and I always fell off the horse. I was pretty good at no-code tools like Squarespace and Wix. And Bubble is sort of like Squarespace or Wix on 100x steroids, in that you can build a proper app with sign up and login and workflows and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And a backend database. So I got myself a no-code coach, this guy, No-Code Andrew Sao, Tsao on the internet. And I worked with him every day for an hour. And after 3 months, I felt like I could pretty much build anything. I could recreate Airbnb. I thought it was amazing. And Bubble is not the solution for everything, but if you're just building something, a CRUD app, as they say, create data, read, update, delete, something that's basically just a really nice form, and pretty much everything on the internet is just a form.
Yeah.
I think that Bubble is amazing. So it's not 100% on Bubble, because the actual sites themselves, like aaroncohn.com, if we hosted it on Bubble, it would load too slow for SEO purposes. So the whole editor is built on Bubble. We export HTML and CSS files to Google Cloud, and then your site is just a static HTML CSS file that is hosted on Google Cloud.
That's a pretty common pattern. Most website builders, typically the builder is this application experience.
Yeah.
But then the publishing process, when you click publish, is typically throwing it into some kind of static site hosting tool, like a CDN, a content delivery network.
Exactly. And that makes it lightning fast. It makes it way better for SEO. And it makes it so, there's nothing weird about it.
That makes sense. So I built Postcard with Ruby on Rails. I coded it. And that's because my background is more software, which can have the downside where every problem looks like a software problem. And I have ended up tweaking a lot of things by hand on Postcard. I would say that my background is more on back-end software engineering.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm less comfortable making these super high polish UIs. But things like scaling email deliverability and like your statistics email, for instance, that tells you how many people viewed your postcard, that kind of stuff is easy for me.
Philip, I really think you have to get good at no-code tools and use them for what it's good at. Because my partner, Matt, again, full stack software engineer, he's amazing. But for simple out-of-the-box stuff like making a sign-up flow or designing a page, it is so much faster. Tweaking stuff, so much easier. Anything front-end is a dream on Bubble. It's amazing. And back-end stuff, you might run into a limitation. I'm so jealous of no-code builders who are also technical, because then they just build their own plugin or they make their own API to do some very specific thing. And I feel like you get the best of both worlds. The best no-code developers are technical.
Yeah.
Not to mention, it took me 3 months to learn Bubble. You learn it in a week because, and I think anyone technical would, because it's the same basic structure.
You drag and drop stuff in and it just works. And I think that's interesting because as a coder, I have felt like it's hard to achieve high levels of polish with no code in the past. In my head, when I think of telling someone to make a no code prototype, like what we did for Moonlight was like a Squarespace website. To post a job, you went and filled out a Google form, and then we sent emails around. And that to me was the early days of no code.
Yeah.
It worked. There were Zapier jobs, but fundamentally it was still this Google form. And everyone looked at that and said, yeah, I know it's a Google form. Yeah. And I think what Bubble seems to be unlocking is this deeper level of abstraction where you can make a super high polished product. If you think of a baseline Ruby on Rails app versus a baseline Bubble app, I think the baseline Bubble is going to be much higher polish than a naive implementation of Ruby on Rails. I don't think someone could just pick up a book on code and build a better app in a few months even than just using Bubble. because getting to the modern level of polish
Hmm.
is so far than what it used to be 10 years ago. Like, people expect
Yeah.
rich text editors and photo uploads and things like that. The status quo is
Yeah.
different now. We have this group in New York of independent builders called Dimes Square Ventures, and
Correct.
over half of the people in there have made their indie businesses on Bubble,
Yeah.
from cover letter writing to real estate software.
Yeah.
And so I definitely feel like Bubble is this interesting technology where you can reach a level of polish that is really
You
super
really
high.
can reach a high level, but I'm also very bullish and a huge fan of your first version being a Google form, or maybe make it a type form.
Yeah.
The very first version of A-Team, which, by the way, is over 100 employees and raised $60 million. A-Team started off with a type
Yeah.
form for freelancers who wanted to join, and a type form for potential clients. And they all went into an Airtable. And honestly, we ran it on an Airtable for a pretty long time.
That's awesome.
And there were parts of it that were excellent. And then when we wanted to get rid of the Typeform, we used Video Ask, which is another great tool made by Typeform, where people could submit videos of themselves talking, answering a question. And that also just went into Airtable. And I think we used Zapier to make the connection. So if Bubble is too much, I am such a big fan. Because again, most things on the internet are basically just a form,
Yeah.
a type form. I also love tally.so because
That's
you can
great.
put, it's basically like Typeform and Notion had a baby. If you love Notion,
Yes.
you can do really good logic stuff. It's free and there's just no barrier. Like
And it's
nothing,
a little indie software too.
it's totally indie software, and nothing bothers me more. And I feel like you're bothered by this too. When you meet people who are just talking about their idea for months and months and months, and they're looking for the perfect co-founder who's technical, or they're looking for the perfect dev shop and they're balking every time. You can probably make your version 1 on tally.so.
Yeah.
Tally.so is amazing, and it's totally free, and you put a little logic in there, and it's 100 times easier than Bubble. So
Yeah.
I'm all about that.
And we know people who have built AI products on Bubble, like Cover Letter Copilot from Ben.
Yeah.
That is an AI product that is using a bunch of OpenAI stuff, and it's still built on Bubble.
Totally.
So you can
Also, Abdul Ramirez runs Broker Loop. It's the most impressive mobile app I've ever seen. It's a social network for real estate brokers, and it's entirely built on Bubble. It's insane how powerful it is. I really describe Bubble as having 90% of the superpowers of a software developer with maybe 9% of the learning curve.
That's
Pretty
great.
good.
And that's awesome because you can, as an indie maker, infuse your personality into the product. Because I think that when you have such a scarcity mindset around building, it can be hard to build, polish, and add fun things. But there's so many of these people that try to do the Pieter levels thing of like launch 12 apps in 12 months. The lesson I learned from Postcard was that there's definitely benefits to trying to swing bigger on products, because what craft software shows is a little bit of a higher conviction. It's like high conviction indie software where you're willing to work on a product for a long time and know it could take some time to build, but that you're actually going to be able to grow it over time.
Another great example that I have of these craft businesses, there's this one called Glass.photo.
I don't know this.
And they call it a home for photography.
Okay.
It's kind of like a private place to store your photos. And their whole thing too is we're independent and proud. We're an independent company, no venture capital or outside funding. And you use that as a badge of honor to talk about why that makes the product better. They're like, because we charge for our platform, we can offer it free of ads. We don't have to do data tracking and engagement platforms. They tell you who's behind it. It's Tom and Stefan. They're two, I think, Copenhagen-based designer guys.
Nice.
And there's so much sameness on the internet.
Yeah.
A lot of the indie hacker products feel the same.
Yeah.
The big company products feel the same. Whereas this small batch software, this craft software, I actually feel they're a lot more distinct.
I agree. And part of that comes from the motivations behind the businesses. I think that a lot of indie hackers are motivated by, I want to make a ton of money and get rich quick.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that can dilute what they're building. So it's like seeking business, don't really care what it is.
Yeah.
And I think what you're talking about with craft software seems to be almost inverted, which is like, I care really deeply about a problem. And I think there's a niche of people who care deeply, like
Yes.
Abdul's company building a social network for real estate agents, right? And there's this small group of people who, they're not going to be served by VCs, but if you find someone who cares really deeply and understands the market, there's going to be some good opportunities
Totally.
there.
I also think that there's some intrinsic motivation
Yeah.
behind the people who build these products. Like the guys from
Yeah.
goodenough.us, I think.
Yeah.
They're a little product studio, I think mostly in Brooklyn, but they're just like old friends.
Yeah.
And I don't know them particularly well, but based on everything that they write and their products that they use, I kind of think that they view themselves as artists above everything else.
Yeah.
They just love building products the way that they want to build it. And I think that they do have high conviction, even though they do launch a lot. I think they kind of have high conviction
Yeah.
on the products. One of their guys, Barry, made a blogging platform called Pika.page.
Pika,
And I
yeah.
really like it. Pika
Yeah.
.page. And it's just good. He just was annoyed about the way that other blogging platforms worked, but I think he's an artist. There's an artistic element. They're not A/B testing things to death. They just have a belief in the way that the world should be.
But because of that, they're moving fast. I met up with James from Good Enough in London for lunch one day. I really like what they're doing too. It's like the small batch building stuff. I do think they're going to probably switch towards caring a little bit more about the business side, but I think that they're in an exploratory phase right now. And what inevitably happens with these indie micro businesses is that they end up having one product that is where all the revenue comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that my guess for someone like a Good Enough is just if you're trying to build this indie studio, that being able to roll out a bunch of products gives you some ability to tell when a product is actually getting traction.
It's definitely nice to have a product that is a cash cow.
Yeah.
Before they sold, I know I would call WildBit. WildBit has been doing this a while, and WildBit it's not a sexy product, but they had Postmark.
I use Postmark for Postcard. Yeah.
I use Postmark too. Postmark kicks the shit out of SendGrid. Postmark is transactional email sending with a little bit of marketing email sending, but it is a cash cow because everyone needs to send it. But then they have all these other auxiliary products around it, like peoplefirstjobs.com.
Yeah.
That's great. They built some other things, and I think that they're kind of artists.
They're artists, but then they sold out, right? So they
well, I don't think you can really say they sold out because they kept it going for 20 years. I think that's good enough.
How are we on timing, by the way?
We're okay. Philip and I are having our partners meet for the first time for some coffee when this is over. Probably cut that, but maybe not.
Who knows? We'll see.
Maybe not, because even though we started as competitors, we're actually friends.
Yes.
and also, part of the reason that I like craft software is I feel like I'm instantly friends with other people who are building craft software, and that's nice.
Because we all go through the same problems. Maybe coming back to personal website builders, what is something that's hard about building personal website builders that people might not expect?
The hardest thing about building a personal website builder is helping people connect their domain to a custom domain. Because first of all, there used to be one good domain registrar out there, and that was Google Domains. And then for some stupid reason, they sold it to Squarespace. And whoever was responsible for this, I want to have a word with, because Google Domains was so good. It was the only one that was good. I don't know why Squarespace bought it. Squarespace is upping the prices. We hate it. And then you have to use Namecheap, which all the developers like, but it's not user friendly.
Yeah.
We use Ionos, and they're good, but they're not as good as Google Domains fundamentally because people still have to create a new user account and a password and verify their email, and everyone drops off.
Yeah.
So much more friction. I like Porkbun. Porkbun is a perfect example.
They're bought some domains there.
Yeah, they're based in Portland, Oregon. It's the one that Derek Sivers recommends. They're wonderful. They're adorable. It's not as good as Google Domain because everyone already has a Google account.
That's the magic of Google is everyone knows what the account is and can get back in and know how to solve that.
Exactly. I haven't found a domain registrar that lets you authenticate with Google yet.
Yeah.
So that's annoying.
Yeah.
So there's just no such thing as a good one. It's just so many people are so intimidated by doing this. And if you want to make your own domain registrar, have fun paying $500,000 to ICANN in order to establish one.
So do you still offer Entry?
We love this company called Entry.
ENTRI.com.
Correct.
Postcard used Entry in the early days. So Entry, to clarify, is like those flows where you connect your bank by logging in and then everything kind of works. Entry builds that for domains where you can say, I want to connect my domain, and it finds the domain registrar and puts in the right records, and it just works. And I really like that. Entry's pricing, though, is the reason that I moved off, because it was going to be the most expensive piece of software on Postcard, and they wanted to put us on this big enterprise contract. And I love the product, and I'm seeing other people around the internet use it. Like, I think that they could just figure out pricing. If they had utility pricing, it would be great.
And as much as I love them, because they raised money, it's hard for them to do some of these nice things that I bet they want to do. I bet they want to help
Yeah.
the little guys start out with some low usage pricing.
Yeah, that'll come in the future.
But I will say they do one thing very well. They're basically Plaid, which lets you
That's what I
connect
was
to your
trying to
bank.
think of. Yeah.
They're Plaid for domain DNS stuff. I suppose the other thing that's annoying about making a personal website builder is just knowing where the line is between simplicity and complexity. Because with a personal website builder, people want all of these features. A lot of people come from Squarespace or Wix, and mind you, they hated paying $25 a month, and they hated how their website got out of date, and they hated doing it. But they're like, ooh, but Squarespace did this one thing.
Yeah.
And we could add it potentially, but also as you add things, you become the thing you hate.
That's absolutely an issue with products, which is when you make something that's simpler, people look at it and that familiarity can help because they know how to use it. But the familiarity can hurt you because they look at it and then can say, oh, this is a personal website builder. I want multiple layouts. I want a calendar view, whatever it might be. And that can definitely harm building software that is really familiar to people. You can just slowly morph into someone else, and then you're always just playing catch up.
Yes. In general, I love products where the end result is 90% as good for 9% of the effort.
Yes, I agree. All right, we should wrap up here.
Yes.
10 seconds. What's a random idea of something you might build next?
Hold on. Let me.
I got one for Postcards.
Okay, you tell me your Postcard one first.
Progressive web apps are something I'm really into right now, and I think I might make it so that you can subscribe to push notifications from someone's website. Sounds crazy, but it's something you can do on the internet now. I added it to my product booklet, and I think it'd be fun to be able to subscribe to updates from someone's Postcard site with push notification without having to install an app. So that's something I'm thinking about adding.
That's really cool. We love that.
Steal it if you want.
So I don't actually think that we want to build any super crazy feature.
I love
think
that.
realnice is pretty much feature complete, and we're pretty good with that. There's a concept of enough, and I think it's enough. If we added more, it would be complex. That being said, we looked at about 300 personal websites before we built it to find one that would work for most people. And I would say it's a pretty nice design. It's a 8 out of 10 in terms of design. I'm proud of it for mine. However, I do think that we could add some really slick, really snazzy designs for paid users. So that's
more templates.
one.
That's what I think about for Postcard too.
Yeah. Nobody thought that Partyful was going to work because they were like, there's so many event platforms. But Partyful won on design. I think it's very possible to win on design. So design is a big one.
Yeah.
The other thing, we started giving away a free custom domain to everyone who signs up, even if they're not a paid user for the first year, because that was such a big hurdle. So now if you sign up for realnice, you get a free custom domain. I think that's amazing and incredible. So you can literally have a website on a custom domain for $0. We want it to be like Gmail in that way. So that eliminated it. And this one was Philip's idea. Forever.
Philip's mom's idea.
I've had aaroncohn.com/Zoom for my Zoom link, or aaroncohn.com/calendar for that. And I share that one link all the time. And I know that every time someone goes to it, a certain number of people are like, oh, I wonder what's on aaroncohn.com. So that's a good way to share it. So we're just putting the finishing touches on that one. It was actually really easy in Bubble.
That's awesome. Yeah. And that idea came from my mom, who I set up a branded Zoom link for her, and her clients wanted to do something similar.
By the way, does she need a website?
Probably.
We'll have to compete for her business.
Yeah.
But I have makemymomawebsite.com. So
that's good leg up.
Yeah. And also, Philip, I just want to say, we started as competitors. We're ending this as competitors. I don't appreciate you trying to fish for inside information on what our big feature is going to be so you can steal it. Unacceptable.
Oh, man.
No, I think seriously, I think that early on in my startup journey, I obsessed over little tiny competitors who were the same size as me. Like my first startup was an on-demand dry cleaning and laundry thing. And we would drive ourselves crazy when a new one would come on the block. 5 years later, all dead. The winner is little mom and pops. Like, I think a lot of people forget that their real competition is everyone who hasn't heard of you. Most people don't want to know about you.
It's the status quo.
Yeah, that's the competition.
Well, it's been fun competing with you and collaborating. And I think we both have gotten better businesses through the collaborations than from fighting. So thanks for hopping on the podcast. We will go grab some coffee and maybe do this again soon.
Amazing. Talk soon.
See you. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Contraption Company podcast. Full show notes for the episode, including links to everything we discussed, are available on the website at contraption.co. There, also make sure you join our newsletter to stay up to date, because there's a lot of content I publish that doesn't make it into the podcast feed. Finally, take a few minutes to try out both Postcard and realnice to see how Aaron and I solve the same problem in different ways. You can sign up for Postcard at postcard.page and for realnice at getrealnice.com. Thanks.